they've got access to so much capital, a lot of operators want to work with family offices because there's so much money there. I mean, just to put it in perspective, there's 6.5 trillion globally in the entire hedge fund universe. There's $10 trillion in the family office world, but you've got 84 trillion coming downstream from the baby boomers, the next gen in the next 20 years. So this market, the family office market, will be larger than private equity, venture capital, and real estate combined.
I'm your host, Josh Appleman, founder and CEO of Appleman Group. Today we're joined with Ron Diamond. Ron is the founder and chairman of Diamond Wealth, which invests alongside 100 plus family offices in private markets. Ron is a seasoned entrepreneur and philanthropist. Ron is a leader in the family office space and a frequent global speaker. Ron, we appreciate you coming on the show today. If you could let the listeners know a little bit more about yourself.
Well, first, thank you for having me. So I graduated from Northwestern. I worked at Drexel Burnham when Drexel existed, and I was there when Drexel imploded. And I was in the room when, people in their 50s and 60s and 70s found out that most of them lost a lot of their money. And it was a very surreal moment for me. So I was very disillusioned. And I basically said I would always be loyal to people, but not to a company. So I moved back to Chicago, started a hedge fund, grew it to about 250 million, sold it in 2000, started investing. And what we currently do is I put together a syndicate of about 100 family offices. These are families anywhere between 250 million to 30 billion. And we invest in the private market. So real estate, which is your world, private equity, and venture capital.
Got it. That is, you've got a lot going on. So you're out there, you're meeting operators, getting to know them, finding out their potential deal flow, and seeing how you can plug into their universe. Is that correct?
Well, a lot of the deals that we get come specifically from family offices. So I'm fairly entrenched in the family office world. So we might get a large family office might take down $100 million of a deal. They have 25 million left, and they'll give it to us, and we'll take it. So that's typically we get our deal flow from family offices.
Okay, all right, got it. And then so you're in sync, aligned with what their investment criteria is, and you seek to extrapolate off that and make it larger, bigger.
Yeah, it's a win-win because basically, we do diligence on our end, but we've got multi-billion-dollar families who are doing diligence on their end as well, and we invest in every asset class in real estate with the exception of office. And it's been very lucrative, and I think it'll continue to be and always will be a huge part of family offices.
Got it. What makes up that deal? The criteria? Does it have to be a certain age in a certain geography? Like what makes up a good deal?
It's opportunistic, and again, the biggest advantage that family offices have is patient capital, and they're sitting on a lot of cash. I mean, there's $10 trillion in capital in family offices, and then you've got 84 trillion coming downstream from the baby boomers, the next gen, in the next 20 years. So we're about to experience the largest transfer of wealth in history. And a lot of times, like in the last couple of years, a lot of family offices got into real estate. A lot of them tried to do direct deals. When they started jacking up interest rates, a lot of them got hit because they did it directly. And I think there's going to be a pivot right now, going to more of the experts. But there's always opportunities in real estate, and it's the biggest asset class that family offices invest in.
If I could, I want to take one step back just so I can let the listeners just have them a little more context. What exactly is a family office? What does it do? What's its purpose, and how is it made up?
That's a $64,000 question. So what a family office is supposed to be and what a family office is. What a family office is supposed to be is a family is typically had a liquidity event. You typically need a minimum of 250 million. Some people would say 500 million in order for it to make economic sense to have a family office. And the goal is to take assets that you've gained from the liquidity event and invest in various asset classes, put together philanthropy, do some estate planning, do some wealth transfer, put some governance in place, and make this last generations. What's happened is it's become very fragmented, very siloed, very inefficient. The model currently doesn't work. Only 25% of families make it to the second generation, 10 make it to the third, and 5 make it to the fourth. So what should be and what reality is are two different things.
And there's different calibers of family offices, I'm sure. Some that are better than others, others that operate different than others. No good, bad, or indifferent. But what if somebody just had a liquidity event? They're looking to get in. They want their wealth to be in a family office or find one or create one. What would be the strategy to go after it and find what they need?
Well, first, let me start by saying I'd say almost 85% of the family offices, at least in my opinion, shouldn't exist um, for various reasons. They don't have the infrastructure. A lot of family offices have less than $250 million and do it, but they're better off in a multifamily office. So there's the whole range of reasons why I think the vast majority shouldn't have it. But those that do, because they've got patient capital, they've got huge access and a huge advantage over the private equity and venture capital firms who have a shot clock on it. So I think in general, the fact that they've got patient capital and are very opportunistic, that's really what sets family offices apart from private equity, venture capital, and sometimes investing in real estate.
And you mentioned time, so they're not out there looking for deals to flip. They're looking for long-term appreciation. They're looking for performance over a long period of time, and more than anything, they're looking for time to take care of the investment, not something that's just going to be a quick win.
Right. So IRR is a moot point for a family office because remember, family office is looking at 100 years, not 100 days or 100 months. So the biggest, like I said, the family offices. If you look at what's happened in the private market, so let's just look at private equity, and it's somewhat akin to with real estate too. But what's happened is a firm will buy a privately held company and hold it, and they're going to hold it and they're going to sell it in 3 to 5 years because that's how they're compensated. And then they're going to sell it, and a lot of times they're going to sell it to a second private equity firm, and they're going to hold it 3 to 5 years because that's how they're compensated. So if you look over the 20-year period, you could see one company change hands 3 to 4 times. And if you look at the taxes and the friction and the inefficiency and the disruption in business versus a family office who simply wants to buy it, hold it for 20 years, let it compound, the results aren't even close. So a family is looking for long-term, and most of the people are looking more for short-term and more IRR multiples.
What would be some of the metrics of a return that they're looking for? Is it just a long, more than you can get, of course, in a CD? Is it 6%, 7%?
No, I think look, the goal of most family offices is to get anywhere between 15 to 20% return on their capital. Doesn't always happen, but that's really the stated goal. And then they also have to understand that some family offices are looking for wealth preservation, so they're going to be much more conservative. Some family offices are very aggressive and want to triple their assets. So it really depends on what their goals and objectives are.
Got it. What have you seen happening with family offices and let's just say multifamily in the past, let's say 18 months?
Most they've gotten killed. So a lot of the family offices, and this is a great opportunity for people who are raising money from who are experts in real estate, because I think what happened is post crash, pre COVID, I don't care what you invested in. Interest rates were zero. Everything went up. Private equity, venture capital, real estate. I mean, it wasn't easy, but it wasn't hard. It was much easier to make money in real estate when in multifamily when interest rates are zero. And then, so a lot of these families basically said they're going to bypass the experts and they're going to invest directly. And their thought process was, why should I pay somebody 2 and 20 if I could make money and not pay anything? And they were right until they were wrong. And what happened about 2 years ago when they started jacking up interest rates is a lot of these people, unless they made their money in real estate, which a few did, but most family offices didn't make specifically in the real estate, they're in way over their skis. And now they're not going to know how to refinance. They're underwater on a lot of these deals. So I think what's going to happen is it's going to be a pushback, and a lot of the family offices who tried to direct deals are not going to go back to the experts, which are probably some of your listeners, and invest there. So I think it's a good opportunity for people who are looking to raise money from family offices because family offices particularly in multifamily office, particularly in the last 2 years, have really been burned if they did it directly.
So you say the experts, so are you saying the syndicator that's set up as the operator that's managing third party or has property management as an arm of their company?
I'm saying the GP, the person who's operating, who's an expert, and that's they basically have a fund investing in multifamily real estate or different kinds of real estate assets.
Okay, he works synonymous with you all, with their asset arm, your all's asset management arm, and their property management. Everything's under essentially one roof. Is what you all like to see the operator having, or is it they can work with third party property management as well as asset management in house, or what is the structure that you like to see?
It doesn't really matter. I mean, both. The answer is both, all of the above. But it basically, family offices, because they're sitting on so much capital, because they don't have a shot clock, because it's patient capital, and they're looking to invest for 100 years. They're much more selective and picky in what they invest in. But because they've got access to so much capital, a lot of operators want to work with family offices because there's so much money there. I mean, just to put it in perspective, there's 6.5 trillion globally in the entire hedge fund universe. There's $10 trillion in the family office world, but you've got 84 trillion coming downstream from the baby boomers, the next gen in the next 20 years. So this market, the family office market, will be larger than private equity, venture capital, and real estate combined. So it's a massive amount of money, but it's still very inefficient, fragmented, and siloed. That's going to change, but we're maybe in the second or third inning.
So an operator who's looking for capital, who's looking to compound down on their unit growth and make bigger things happen with the environment that we're in, they would come to your company, and then you would help them partner up with 100 plus other family offices. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, got it. What does that process look like?
Well, we don't do it. So again, I ran a hedge fund and sold it and had a liquidity event. So I basically invest my capital. I invest in every deal, and we don't charge anything for the other families. But I'm not doing it for self-list purpose. I do it selfishly because I don't have enough capital to put in $50 million to $100 million to every deal. Now I do. I'll put in a little bit. I'll get the families to put in a lot of money, and then we could put together. So I call what I do first call alpha.
Got it. Okay, and that's what stage would that be considered? It's first round. It's not seed. It's just first round.
No, when I say first call alpha, I'm just basically saying that the model that I have is a way for me to take a finite amount of capital, which I have, and deploy it with other people. So I have access. I'm the first. I want to be the first call rather than 25th call. I don't want to see a deal after 24 people have said no. I don't have enough capital to be the first call. Now I do.
Got it. So how has your firm evolved over the years? Because you get better as you keep doing things. So how has it evolved?
We've grown. I mean, we've grown a lot. It's not really a business. It's a way for me to take my capital and invest it alongside other families. I sit on a bunch of advisory boards. I'm in the process of putting together a family office initiative at one of the top schools in the world, because family offices, like I said, it is a very fragmented industry. And just to put it in perspective, 68% of family offices that exist started since 2000, and half of those started since 2000, 2008, 2009. So this is a very new industry with 25% success rate in G2, 10 in G3, and 5 in G4. So we're in the second inning, and I think that you're going to see massive changes. And I think over the next 5 to 10 years, as private equity and venture capital and real estate disrupted the public market in the mid-'80s, family offices are going to start to disrupt private equity and venture capital.
Got it. Would you consider that, I guess, what would you consider the biggest challenge today facing the family offices?
There's a lot. The biggest obstacle, truthfully, of family offices is the ego of the founder. Because you sold a company for $1 billion and you're really good at something, let's say you made your money in real estate, doesn't mean you're good at venture, or doesn't mean you're good at private equity or different sports teams. So I think you've got huge amounts of money in inefficient hands. And like I said, the biggest obstacle for many of these families is the ego of the founder who did great in something, and they think they could transfer that skill into other asset classes. If you didn't make your money in real estate, you made your money in tech, you shouldn't try to make your money in real estate doing it yourself. You should partner with other people who made. Now, if you made your money in tech, you could do that yourself. But if you didn't, you shouldn't. So I think you've got huge amounts of capital in inefficient hands. And I think we're at an inflection point, and families are, the reason for there's been so much growth is, the first, second, third thing a family office wants to know when they're going to invest with somebody is, can they trust you? And then the fourth thing is, what's your track record? Now that's flipped institutionally, where if you go to a pension fund, they're going to want to know what's your 1, 3, 5, 10-year track record, what's your biggest drawdown, what's your biggest loss, et cetera, track record of all your funds. And then they'll diligence you as a person. The reason there's been so much growth in family offices is, it's not that all of a sudden people want to manage money and love managing money. It's they stop trusting Wall Street, and it's justifiably so, because there's an inherent conflict of interest with much of the way Wall Street operates. And the families would rather work with people that they know and trust. And that's really what's been driving it. Not so much that everyone wants to manage money or invest in real estate, but the fact that they've got a huge amount of capital and they don't trust other people to do it.
Got it. Yeah, there's two sayings that I go by: the obstacle is the way, and the ego is the enemy. And interesting, they say that people they win at something, and they think they forget that life's about learning. You have to keep on leveling up, learn as much as you can.
Well, I mean, in your industry, Ty Warner was a brilliant businessman, created Beanie Babies, sold it for billions of dollars, and then he tried to buy hotels, get crushed. So again, he's a brilliant guy, and he's a very thoughtful person, but because he made billions of dollars in a niche company, which he did incredibly well, doesn't mean he could take that and invest in hotels, the Four Seasons. And we saw what happened. So that's just an example of, I think, what's wrong with the industry.
Yeah, and operator that comes in very different ways. Expertise, you can go a mile deep or a mile wide. And what is your feeling on the hotel space right now?
I think there's always opportunities. I think I'm bullish on hotels. I think in general, there's a lot of operators that are not good, but there's a lot of operators that are good. And those that are, that have a good track record, I think people are wanting more experiences. People after COVID still want to get out. I think more and more, there's still some of that effect coming on. So I think in general, the hospitality, the hotel industry in general is a good industry to be in.
Yeah, I agree. I think everything's cyclical, but there's different things that can spike certain industries quicker than others. What's your outlook on multifamily? Is it different areas becoming oversaturated, or is there enough room for as much that they can possibly build?
Both. So some areas have been oversaturated for sure. But I think that we're in an economy right now where it used to be where if you could afford to buy a place, you bought it, and if you couldn't, you rented it. And now, if you look at the demographics of the country, at least in the U.S., if you're graduating college, by the time you're 22, by the time you're 30, you'll probably have 4 to 5 different jobs. So why would you even contemplate buying a place? Well, you're better off renting because you're going to be moving. Having said that, it used to be where anytime you invested in real estate, in a home, it went up until the crash, right? And then once the crash happened, now people are realizing. So now you've got some of the most affluent people who are renting and not buying, and they never would have considered that 15 years ago. So I think that the last thing is, more and more people. It's a very mobile society, and more people are looking to rent. So the multifamily office has been a huge profit center for the real estate industry. I think will continue to be a huge profit center. There might be other areas like build to rent is a very lucrative area. I've got a couple of families we work with that are very innovative in that space. But I think that the day of buying because you can afford to buy is done.
Yeah. I mean, what comes along with home ownership is all of the other bills that they don't tell you about as well. And I think that's one thing that they do consider. And then being transient. And what is your feel with working from home? Is that here to stay, or do you feel like there's been a lot of announcements, a lot of companies that are bringing them back or wanting to bring them back? What's your outlook?
I've got very strong opinions on that. First of all, I think it's really bad. particularly for the younger generation. I mean, I've been in business for 35 years, so I don't need mentors right today. But when I'm 25, 20, 30 years old, you learn from through osmosis, being in the office, by listening to people, by watching how people interact. And I just think it's a huge advantage to be there. And I think how it's going to play out is that there's been a big backlash all of a sudden, particularly with the younger generation. Like they think it's cool to work in their pajamas and they don't have to go to the office. They don't understand what they're missing. And I think there will be a backlash. And I think more and more firms are realizing that and are going to want people to come back to the office. Having said that, the genie's out of the bottle. So it'll never go back to 5 days a week office. It'll go back to 3, maybe 4 days a week. But I think it's really important for younger people to be in the office. And I think it's important for a culture of a firm to be together. I mean, human beings are wired. We're social animals. We're not wired to be in our bedroom in our pajamas looking at a computer screen all day. It's not healthy and it's not good. So I think that there's going to be a backlash. It'll change a lot.
Yeah, I totally agree. I couldn't agree more. We meet here at the office every single morning, 7:30 stand-up meeting. We do have a few people that come in. We have the Zoom and everything, but you get the amount of information you can intake just by walking by and hearing conversation. I mean, you're not going to get that anywhere else. It's just
you can't, and it's just overhearing something. Oh, hey, I heard you say this. Have you thought of this? I just and again, I go back to the younger people. It's imperative for the younger people. They don't know what they're missing, and I think how it's going to play out is the younger people who do go to the office are the ones who will get promoted, and the ones that don't get to the office in general are the ones that won't. They're not going to develop the relationships. The business is a relationship business. It's hard to have a relationship over a computer. I mean, we're having a podcast right now, which is great. But if we did this in person, it would be that much more effective.
Yeah, people feed off other people's energy, and you can't get that. You can't get that through the screen. It's just there's just a certain energy that comes into the room, and the ideas that spring up, and just through conversation. But ultimately, the damage has been done, and it's not going away, like you had mentioned. And now it's learning how to cope with what we have, and figure out how it is going to change the landscape, make the landscape better, more efficient.
Now, having said that, though, I mean, for me, it's better, right? I mean, so I don't have to commute. I'm at my home office today. I have 2 offices, and I go there a lot. But for people who've been in business for a while, I think it's great. And then you could be, a lot of people we live in Illinois. A lot of people are Florida residents, so they're there 6 months. So you don't physically have to be there. And if you've already got the clientele and the relationships, I think this is a great thing. It gives you flexibility, but I think in general, it's not healthy. And in general, you're going to see a lot of these companies push back. And I don't think they could demand it or force it, but they're going to strongly encourage it and figure out ways to incent people to come back to the office. I think that's how it's going to play out.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And if not, they're going to be the last to know. And ultimately, it's I'm not going to say a phase. I think it depends on how much performance you're bringing to the organization too. I mean, if you're out just getting it every single day, you can't replace a person that brings high performance, high energy to a firm. But for the ones that just don't check in, don't bring any new energy, new ideas, new innovation, then that's just the way it goes, anyways. What is your feeling on ChatGPT, AI, and other things that are coming down a pipe that are ultimately creating a lot more efficiencies, a lot more innovation, and being able to utilize that in firms?
I gave a keynote at Stanford University, and I had the professor who spoke right before me had a picture of fire, a picture of a wheel, the word internet, and the word artificial intelligence. And what he was saying is, as transformative as fire was for society to develop, and then the wheel, and then the internet, this is how transformative artificial intelligence will. It's going to completely be it'll be a complete game changer. I think it'll be a bigger game changer than the internet. The positives are things like healthcare, where you could just throw a lot of data. I think we're going to be able to solve some of these diseases, and that's a great thing. I think that there's going to be a tremendous amount of benefit that happens from artificial intelligence. I think people have no clue on, in general, the power and how transformative this is going to be. So if I told somebody in 1990 that the internet was going to change the world, what does that mean? I mean, for tech people, they get it, but most people don't. I think this will be more transformative because the ability to accumulate incredible amounts of data instantaneously and then apply that, and then they're learning and it's getting smarter. So things like ChatGPT, which I play around with a lot, I could write, you could tell me your name, where you're from, where your parents are from, 5 character traits, and I could write a 5-page essay about your family that's exactly what your family is like. So it's powerful, and I don't think people realize quite how powerful it's going to be. But it'll be a game changer.
Yeah. You still need an operator to put in the commands. We'll call it the prompts.
You need the person to be able to ask the right questions,
Yeah.
and then they ask the right questions. Then you have to ask more right questions, and so you do need a conductor to do that. So it's not like you could just go to AI and say, "Hey, solve cancer," but you could go there and talk with one thing, and then ask other questions, and then iterate from there. So I think it's going to be. Um, I just I'm extremely excited to see how it plays out because it will be more transformative than the internet.
What do you think happens to the jobs landscape? Customer service is of course going to be wiped out in a sense because
Yeah, I mean, why paralegal is not going to exist? I mean, why do you could do it on a computer like that? Why pay a paralegal? Um, trust title companies. I mean, there's a whole bunch of industries that are not going to exist. Now, having said that, there will also be new industries that come forward and where people can invest, can do it. But if you don't plug in, it's like if you closed your eyes and pretended the internet didn't exist, you were left far behind. And I think the same thing's going to happen with artificial intelligence. There is going to be disruption. There will be some bad actors, and bad things will happen, and there will be bad consequences for certain jobs. But in general, it's going to be so transformative that if you understand it's not probably happening, it is happening, and it can't not change the world drastically. As long as you get ahead of that, you could work with it, not against it.
yeah, I totally agree. And now is definitely the time. The younger generation up and coming that are almost born with a tablet in their hand. My kids, they their their future is going to be wildly different than I think that we can imagine. But a lot of, like you said, a lot of opportunity comes along the way as well. It's just one. It's what goes with it. What do you feel about tokenization with real estate?
I'm not qualified to really answer that question.
Okay.
I know a little bit about it, but I'm not qualified to answer that question.
Okay, because that's a totally separate front as well with blockchain, Bitcoin,
Well,
cryptocurrencies.
but remember, so blockchain is real. Blockchain exists. Blockchain is different than crypto, and people have to understand that. So blockchain is simply the way things are working. In crypto, 90% of these, 95% of the coins are worth zero, are worthless. I think blockchain will be transformative and will make a big change in it. But I think that you can't just lump everything together. With blockchain is not the same thing as cryptocurrency. So they're two different things.
Yeah, and Web3, and yeah, but it's a whole other front of different technologies that are new, innovative, and in a sense setting the landscape of how transactions are made in the future. Um, One quick question, and then we'll wrap it up. If you could go back in time and invest in an investment that you'd passed on, what would it have been?
Berkshire Hathaway,
Got it. And why is that?
because they made a lot of money and I didn't.
What was the story? You just passed it up. You had the opportunity, didn't happen, didn't see it.
Well, look, there's been a lot. I ran a hedge fund, so there's a lot of companies that made a lot of money that I didn't invest in, right?
Yeah.
And you just try to, you can't invest in everything. And but Berkshire, I think, is an example of something that it's patient capital, it's long term. Warren Buffett, I know he's a thoughtful person, and it just kept going up and up and up. And it's at what point do you invest in it? Is it overvalued? So I would say of the one company, I would say that would be Berkshire Hathaway.
Perfect. Ron, if somebody wants to reach out to you, learn more about yourself, your company, possibly invest with you, another family office, how can they get a hold of you?
FamilyOfficeWorldMedia.com is, kind of our site. I'm fairly active on LinkedIn, and put out a lot of content.
Awesome. We definitely appreciate you coming on the show. I certainly look forward to following you, and we will talk soon. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right.